to be able to share screen control?
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely make sure we do that. You do
Yeah.
have the access now, and we are going to go live in just a second here. Go live, Conquistador Council. It's thinking about life. What?
Okay, looks like it's doing it.
It's doing it. It's thinking about it real quick. Redirect to Facebook.
The meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Oh, there we are.
All right.
Yeah, you ready?
Let's go for it.
All right. Good morning, and it is morning when we're taping or recording this session. This morning, I'd like to I'm Howard Barman, one of the Scoutmasters here in Conquistador Council. There's also several other hats I wear, but that's not a big deal. Right now, this morning, we have as a guest Newt Peterson, a cave management specialist for the Bureau of Land Management here in southeast New Mexico. And Newt, you were telling me that there was something like 250 known caves on public lands?
Yeah, so in the Roswell field office, we managed over 250 known caves. A lot of them are very small caves. However, we do have 3 major bat hibernaculum that we manage, and some of those are north of Roswell, and one big one is west of Roswell near Fort Stanton, New Mexico, which is pictured behind you, Howard.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, it's one of the better pictures I took when I was still working at the Bureau. So there's on public land, there's some, over 250. Does that mean that that's the only place they're found?
No, actually, since public land is sort of a quilt work of ownership, there's a lot of caves that are also on private and state lands in that area. And in the Fort Stanton area, the Forest Service also manages a number of caves on the lands that they manage. So I would say in southeastern New Mexico, in Lincoln and Chavez County, where the majority of caves are, there's probably well over 1,000 different caves.
Okay, so what you're really saying then, there's a bunch of these things all over the landscape. Of course, the most famous are, Carlsbad Caverns down at the national park. And for people who don't know, there's Lechuguilla is one of the bigger ones that's associated with the park itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the Carlsbad National Park has a number of caves. Most people are familiar with Carlsbad Caverns, which is running about 40 miles in map length. And then Lechuguilla, which is the big one that tourists generally don't go to at all, is now over 150 miles of mapped passage.
150?
150.
Wow, that's a long way back in there. Take you
Yeah,
more than a day to hike through it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. The footprint for the cave is about 2 miles by 1 mile on the surface, and then the cave runs about a little over 1,600 feet deep. And so in that area, there's a lot of interconnecting passages like so. So that gives it sort of a honeycomb kind of structure, and that's where a lot of that mileage comes from. So the unique thing about that is that you're not very far from the entrance. Generally, it may take you a while to get there, but as far as travel mileage, you're not more than 2 to 3 miles from the entrance. Whereas Fort Stanton Cave, which is the cave we'll be talking about today, um, is got a huge footprint, and we haven't even mapped to the end of it, but right now, from the entrance to the known frontier is about 12 miles away. You would have to travel. So that's what makes Fort Stanton Cave a unique cave system, that it has a huge footprint. And like I said before, we're nowhere near the end of exploration.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. We're talking about caves throughout the southeast of Mexico. Does so hey, somebody finds one they want to go into, does it need a permit or anything?
It depends on the cave. If they have gates, then they do need permits. And we have 6 caves that are gated in our field office. And some of those are restricted entries, and they're gated to protect Native American resources and things like that that are in those caves. Other ones are available through a permitting system. Right now, we do have a situation with white nose syndrome, which is a fungal disease that's affecting bats. So access is particularly limited right now to those gated caves, but there are still hundreds of other caves that are not bat hibernaculum within our field office that are open to caving.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute then. So we got caves that are open to caving. Is this not something you show up with a flashlight and jump in? Is it? I mean, are there certain steps you should take or precautions?
Yeah, there are. And I have a gear list in the PowerPoint that I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes that will go through all of that gear that you would need. But generally speaking, what you're going to need is a helmet. You'll need 3 sources of light. And that's sort of your primary things to protect yourself. Additional things would be to have a backpack with food and water, extra batteries. Knee pads are very helpful. Elbow pads are very helpful. And then it's nice to have gloves so that you're not leaving the oils of your hands behind on the rocks, which can affect formation growth. And then coveralls are really handy too, because some of these caves that are north of Roswell are also used as dens for animals such as porcupines and pack rats and that kind of thing, which can carry ticks and things like that. So you'd want to add that additional barrier to yourself to prevent, you know, infestation.
Well, I'll tell you what then, if you've got a PowerPoint, we'll go over some of the safety precautions, and a scout is prepared. So let's see it, because I think the safety concerns on this might be, you know, as scouts try to remember, is that, yeah, we're for adventure, but you got to do it in a safe manner. So let's see this.
Absolutely. Caving is definitely a dangerous thing. So being prepared is very important, and knowing where you're going, and having somebody else on the surface know where you're going that's not going with you is very important.
Caving is definitely a dangerous thing.
Trapped in the cave, then you want somebody to be able to
Where you're going,
come and rescue you. So,
Okay.
All right, and so let me see if we can get this PowerPoint going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up, I believe.
Well, I think you've got control of the screen eventually.
Yes, so let me manipulate things here a little bit. Okay, that there, let's do the share screen. And I believe this one will work. There we go, and let's go to slideshow and start from the beginning. All right, can you see that?
Yes, we're ready to go.
All right, fantastic. So this will be a short PowerPoint on an introduction to caving, and we'll also have some pictures inside of Fort Stanton Cave, which I chose to share with you today because it's one of our most spectacularly decorated caves. And so we'll get on with that. My name is Newt Peterson, and I'm a cave and karst specialist working for the Bureau of Land Management out of Roswell, New Mexico. I'm stationed up at Fort Stanton, close to Fort Stanton Cave. So it's our major cave system that needs the most of my attention. So in the Roswell area, there's a big karst area, which is circled on this map here, and pretty much anywhere in that circle, you're going to find a lot of caves. So this is what the area north of the Capitan Mountains looks like. We call it Gyp Cap, which is the gypsum karst plains. And as you can see, there's a lot of gypsum here, and it's highly fractured. And when water percolates down into the ground, it dissolves the gypsum and creates cave passages. Here you can see some cavers that are working their way into one of these passages. As you can see, you don't want one of these big rocks falling on you either. So that's where the helmet's going to help out a little bit. For the smaller rocks, and the big stuff, well, you're kind of on your own there. So,
Well, you did say it was dangerous.
it is dangerous. So, I mean, yeah, you could be flattened by a Volkswagen-sized rock, and you need to be really careful and looking at where you're going and what looks stable and what doesn't look stable. So that's having situational awareness, which is really important when you're caving. When you get dropped down into one of these holes here, animals like to live here. There's rattlesnakes, there's skunks, there's bobcats, porcupines, and other creatures of the dark. So you really want to kind of take a moment and say, hey, you know, what's around me? And what does this look like a safe place to go? Should I be here? And I think that's what's important. And so we'll move on. This is a sinkhole that is close to the Pecos River, north of Roswell. And you can see a truck in the background. This is about 70 feet deep and a couple of 100 feet wide. And the story behind this is that a rancher actually was out looking for cows one evening and drove across this area way before it had opened up. And he couldn't find his cows, so he went home. The next morning he got up early and came out to this same area to see if his cows had reappeared. And he saw his tracks going across this to the edge of this sinkhole that opened up overnight. And so these things can happen fairly quickly. And as you can see down at the bottom, there's some groundwater. So that groundwater had dissolved away the gypsum underneath and kept causing the ceiling of that cavity to keep caving in and caving in and caving in and caving in. And eventually it broke through the surface and this sinkhole opened up. So these things are actively happening underneath the ground, and we don't see them until they appear. Here's another picture of that sinkhole. And here, when you get close to the edges of these sinkholes, you want to be really careful. If you notice to the left of this gentleman who's peering over the edge of this sinkhole, there's a big crack in the ground, and that crack is the next piece about to break off and fall into the sinkhole. So you really want to stay away from the edges of these things, especially ground that already looks like it's about to fall in. So like I said, situational awareness is really the big thing that's going to keep you safe while you're caving, and keeping your friends safe too, making sure that they're not doing something silly like this. So here's some of the equipment you can see cavers outfitted with, and they're carrying helmets and I don't know if you can you see my mouse pointer?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so here are elbow pads. Here's a helmet with lights on it, knee pads. Here's the caving suit. Good sturdy work shoes and climbing shoes or outdoor lightweight hikers are great to have for traction, ankle protection, and that sort of thing. You can see this guy has his socks pulled over his coveralls to keep out the critters, such as ticks and fleas and other small things that might try to get onto your body. And here's a cave pack over here. So we'll go over that a little bit more in detail. momentarily. So BLM manages what's called the Fort Stanton Snowy River Cave National Conservation Area, which is located basically surrounding Fort Stanton, New Mexico, and also close to Capitan or Ruidoso, if folks are familiar with those areas. And it's a 25,000 acre conservation area that was created in 2009 to protect the cave system that's there, which after in 2001, cavers broke into what was dug into Snowy River Passage, which vastly expanded the cave system. And so that's where that protection was needed. Here's the location of it on a map of the National Conservation Area, and you can see Lincoln, Capitan, and Ruidoso there. A lot of the cave work we do is done by volunteers, including Boy Scouts at times. And without these volunteers, much of the work in the cave would not be able to be accomplished. They do restoration work, they do mapping, and that sort of stuff, restoration. So here's this equipment list I talked about earlier. So to be prepared to go caving, the gear you want to take is a helmet, lights, and you need 3 lights. And the reason for having 3 lights is because if one fails, you really want to have a backup. And if that fails, you've got another backup. And hopefully everybody on the trip, so if you're caving with 4 people, you should have 12 sets of lights, which should be enough to take care of any light failures. Coveralls, as I mentioned before, are great for protecting yourself. Gloves, knee pads, good boots, a backpack to carry food and water, extra batteries, and a first aid kit is really handy because a lot of times you'll get a small cut or things like that, and it's nice to be able to patch those up on the fly. So in preparation for your trip, you want to know where you're going and be prepared for that type of cave. Some caves have water in them and tend to be colder, so you may end up having hypothermic situations presenting themselves. So warmer clothing is always a good thing. So know where you are and where you're going is really important. You want to have the surface support, and I kind of alluded to that earlier. Generally, we have somebody who's on the surface who knows exactly where you're going and exactly when you're going to be coming back. So you plan your cave trip for, say, 8 or 10 hours, and that person waits, and then when you come out of the cave, you need to contact them and let them know that you're out. So that out time is really important, because if they don't hear from you by that time, then you will have a grace period, and we use a 3-hour grace period after that out time before that person calls for a rescue. So that grace period gives you a little bit of time in case something goes wrong, where somebody's, maybe sprained an ankle but is still working their way out, or some other things slow you down, like somebody likes to take a lot of pictures and you can't keep them moving along, and that kind of thing. So, and then if they haven't heard from you after that grace period, then we have what we call our rescue time, which we set, like 3 hours afterwards, that they would now call search and rescue to come and find you inside of this cave. So that's why it's really important for them to know exactly where you are, because there's a lot of caves in some areas, and if they don't know exactly which hole you went into, then they won't know which one to look for. Sometimes it's handy to leave something outside of the entrance that you went in, so that people can say, aha, here's a pair of shoes or something that, somebody left, a change of clothing, or a note, or some kind of flagging, some sort of an indicator. So that's super important, is letting people know, because if you get trapped in there or injured, that they're your only hope for rescue. So one of our big key safety features right there.
Well, May I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
It's also one of the key safety features for any scout outing is people know
Mhm.
where you're going, what you're going to do while you're there, when you're supposed to be back. So it's
Right.
for
Oh,
anybody
it
who
makes
thinks, well,
sense.
yeah, and it makes sense no matter what you're doing, particularly if there's,
Yep.
4 or 5 of you,
Yep.
or even just a
Exactly.
couple of you.
Sure. Well, we all look out after each other, and we have to have information in order to be able to do that in an effective way.
All right.
Okay. So this is the entrance to Fort Stanton Cave, and you see some cavers heading down. And these cavers are carrying slightly larger packs than you saw in the previous picture of cavers. These guys are going in for a 30-hour trip to carry out radiolocation work. They're carrying about 35 to 40-pound packs. They're round, so they can be rolled. They don't have a lot of things hanging off of these packs, so they don't get hung up when they're climbing or crawling and that kind of thing. But you can see that they're outfitted, as we've talked, with gloves and coveralls and helmets and lights. And obviously these guys have extra water and food because they're going to be gone for 30 hours, which is a fairly decent length cave trip. Some of our cave trips into Fort Stanton Cave can last up to 4 days. So, and we leave no trace, which I believe the scouts also follow, which is basically we're taking everything in and we're taking everything out. Okay, so this is a fairly current map of Fort Stanton Cave. As you can see, the footprint is fairly large. So from here to down here is about 9 miles as the crow flies. And then if you take some of these twists and turns and add that into it, it pushes this distance from here to the entrance being just over 12 miles in length. And that takes a full day of just caving straight and hard to get out to this point. And we've now pushed the cave. This number is no longer correct. We added some more, and we're now at 42.5 miles in Fort Stanton Cave. And it has just gone over from the 10th. 2 weekends ago, we added some more passage that took us from 10th to the 9th longest cave in the United States. And we bumped all the way up to the 40th longest cave in the world. This cave is very significant scientifically and for exploration as well. And we're always looking for new young cavers to come out and join the ranks of the strong and light cavers who get to explore out here. So if young folks are interested in caving, they can contact either the BLM or the National Speleological Society and find out how to get into caving, who their local grotto is, and be able to get trained up on proper caving techniques so that they don't impact the cave system. And they can go into a variety of different fields in here. I mean, there's geology, hydrology, biology, cartography, geography. There's a bunch of different stuff that we need specialists and people who are strong in those fields to be able to help us out with. So there's all kinds of opportunities available. A lot of people think caves are very small and tight passage where you're going to be claustrophobic. But as you can see from this photo, this is a pretty standard borehole sized passage in Fort Stanton Cave. And you can see the cavers there are relatively small compared to the passage. You can fit your home in here. And so I tell a lot of people, if you think you're claustrophobic, a lot of this cave passage is bigger than your living room. So if you're not afraid of being in your living room, then you're probably okay here. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a few tight spots and crawls in this cave, but that becomes exciting and fun to explore those little nooks and crannies, and their end up are what leads to new passage and new discoveries, and that's super exciting to be able to be the person who found something new. That's the crux of exploration over the last thousands of years that people have been finding places, is that excitement. Here you can see a large collapse, and right in here there's a human again, so that gives you a sense of scale. And you can see that this big chunk of rock fell out of this hole in the ceiling here. So this is not the place to be standing when that happens, but you can never tell when that's going to happen. So once again, situational awareness and some good luck as well is involved. This is Snowy River Passage here, and you can see why it's called Snowy River. It looks like a giant snowy river. It's really smooth, and this is easy caving to walk on this. We transition from when you're walking on muddy parts to clean parts, so we don't bring mud onto here. So there is a clothing change involved, and from the beginning of where you enter Snowy River to our exploration horizon and furthest point is basically you have to do 27 clothing changes from dirty to clean, and we've cut that down from probably close to 70 of those by using something we call magic carpets, which help protect you put them over the muddy areas, and that way you don't get mud on your boots when you're walking on the muddy areas. You're walking on a piece of plastic tarp.
Okay, Newt, just for
Yes.
so everybody's information, this is a calcite deposit on the bottom of the floor. Is that correct?
Correct. Without going into too much hydrology, if you have limestone, which Fort Stanton Cave is formed in, and that's the rock body, as water percolates down from the surface, it dissolves some of that limestone and the water becomes saturated with calcite, and that water then travels down into it flows as a river here in this case, and then as that calcite comes out of solution because it's saturated, it deposits calcite onto this formation. And that's how generally all cave formations like stalactites and stalagmites are formed, is that deposition of calcite. So does that kind of explain that to you, Howard?
Yeah, and I was just thinking of when those pictures first came back when they first found it and they showed them to us there in the Roswell BLM office. Just the amazement on everybody's face when we looked at them. It was quite the amazing and startling thing to see, because nobody expected to see anything like that in there.
Right. Yeah, and this formation is only 800 to 900 years old. So something changed in the hydrology and the connection to the geology that started creating a heavier depositional environment.
Yeah.
In order.
I suppose we ought to say that occasionally we can't get into the cave because this part is flooded.
That's correct.
That's why the calcite is there.
Right. So yeah, the action of flooding is what's causing the deposition of this formation here. And at one point, it caused the solution of this passage here. So there was all of this being dissolved away for many, many years. And then recently, we've now had deposition. But we've had, the flooding in Fort Stanton Cave is very dependent upon surface precipitation. And since 2014, we've had what seems, at least in the caving world, is a lot of precipitation on the surface, which has caused flooding every year through this year. In fact, we're hoping for a little bit drier times to be able to go caving more, but then you're now getting drought situations on the surface. So what's good for caving is not necessarily good for the surface people and vegetation. So it is kind of a trade-off, and I think most people would prefer to have rain than drought. So
I know they have had the passage flood because of precipitation in Lincoln County, but I wish it rained more at my house.
Right. Well, we do get some windows in the precipitation on the surface that do give us an opportunity to go caving on Fort Stanton or on Snowy River. So this is the crawl passage, the beginning of the crawl from hell, which is about a half a mile long crawl. And this is very tall here, but you can see this caver in the distance is starting to have to get down on his hands and knees and really crawl hard. And it does get lower than that for about a half a mile of crawling.
Yeah, I suppose we should point out that if you're part of the exploration team, you get to name the passages.
Correct. If you're the person who finds something, a feature
Yeah.
or a formation or a passage, that you do get to name it. So
Yeah, yeah. Hence the name you just mentioned.
That's cool.
yes, and that's the excitement of exploration that drives folks further and further into the cave to be that guy that gets to name something, and it's a very satisfying feeling.
Well, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, look at this here. You've got Icicle Isle, and you can see why somebody named that. There's a crack in the bedrock here, and that's where, so after this formation, this passage formed, because water followed this crack, then now you have water flowing in from the surface, and it's creating these formations, these secondary formations that are flowing out of that crack, because that's where the water is coming from on the surface. We do a lot of science in Fort Stanton Cave, and here we have a couple of cavers that are collecting water samples. We're doing geochemistry on the water samples. We're also doing biologic sampling, so we're looking for different kinds of life forms that and microbial life forms that may be present in the water. We're also testing for any kind of contaminants that there may be as well. Here's a couple of biologists, and they're looking at some ferromanganese deposits, which are these black coatings that are on the cave walls, and they're created by a life form as well that is consuming the rock and taking the nitrogen that is built up and stored in the rock and using that in order to be able to have a source of energy to live. So a lot of life forms use sunlight and are carbon-based. These are not. So there's a lot of interesting and new things in caves to be found. There's potential for new medications to come out of there, antibiotics and things. So
Yeah,
biology might
yeah,
wanna,
just for a couple of points here. When I retired, we still had a couple of PhDs from local universities working on this kind of stuff. Are they still doing that?
yeah, those guys have shifted out and graduated and have moved on, but we have a fairly robust science program in Fort Stanton Cave. We're studying paleoclimate. We are studying microbiology, geology, and hydrology of this system. So there's a ton of really cool things to learn about and try to figure out in this new world, essentially, that's unexplored underneath the ground.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here's some hydromagnesite balloons. So these formations right here sort of look like balloons, and they're a crystalline structure. So it's fairly neat. You could spend a whole lifetime studying the mineralogy of a lot of these formations. And these are all calcite, but when you add different minerals to calcite, it does different things, and it has different colors, as you can see. So that's a really neat aspect of it, and there's a whole, like I said, lifetime of study there. Here we have some stalactites. This is called Harmony Hall. This is fairly far south. This is about 11 miles from the entrance. The cavers named it Harmony Hall because they thought that when they were talking that they could hear these stalactites resonating to the frequency of the voice. And so they were harmonizing with the cavers, these formations.
Well, either that or they've been in the dark too long.
Well, that's possible too. But yeah, this is a really neat area, one of the more heavily decorated areas.
Wow, it is fantastic.
Wow.
Here we have some flowstone cascade, and you can see these cavers here taking a little bit of a break. And not surprising, there's a lot of female cavers as well. It's maybe not equal to how many men cavers or male cavers there are, but I would say it's probably about 25% of the caving community in New Mexico are females, and they are just as capable as anybody else of doing this caving. And it's great to have a good diverse group of people who are involved in it. Here's a brachiopod fossil with intact pedicle, which usually when these things are dug out of the ground, this is broken off. But here the limestone has decomposed and just sort of fell off as dust around this and self-extracted this brachiopod here. So it's almost perfectly preserved. So there's a whole nother field of paleontology that can be done here, and anthropology. There's all kinds of things, archaeology. It's an amazing place to go and find things and study stuff. Here's some aragonite crystals, and they are, as you can see, they're kind of growing in one direction, and that's indicative of airflow inside the cave. Primary airflow will tend to cause these crystals to grow directionally. It's a little lemon head formation. It's a little different. You just never know what you're going to quite run across. Some more flowstone. This is starting to move into the red velvet passage area, and you can see the color of those stalactites are starting to turn red. This is what we call box work because it kind of looks like a box. This is looking up at the ceiling, and you can see these sort of, I don't know, borders, it's what we would sort of call them. But the way these are formed is, I'll show you the next slide, is this is the reverse of mud cracks. So what you see here as the crack in the mud, if we go back, is actually this right here. So these squares right here have created thinking in reverse, right? Because this is the surface, and right here you're looking up at it. This is the surface now, and it got filled in with a harder mineral that infiltrated the cracks and coated the surface. And then all of this was eroded out from underneath, and that harder mineral didn't get a chance to, you know, fill in underneath this mud crack because it's connected to the ground. So that's how these are formed, this box work here. It took people a little while to figure out how did this happen, but once you see this, then it becomes fairly obvious. Another picture of the red velvet passage, and you can see that it's got some really great coloring to it. And this reddish color is indicative of iron oxide. Here we have a skeleton of perhaps a ringtail cat. We have not done any real serious analysis of it, but it does appear that that's what it is. So we're going to try to do some radiocarbon dating on this and see if we can get an age of this. Now, this is found about 9 miles into the cave off of one of the side passages that comes off the Snowy River. And that side passage is tending and trending towards the surface, and we feel that there's probably no way that this came in through the main entrance, but perhaps there was a paleo entrance in that side passage that breached the surface, and this little guy got chased in there and ended up wandering down into the dark and maybe got lost and then passed away. And so we're going to try to push that passage out to the surface so if we can see if there's, you know, where it might go or where it may have been on the surface. So there's all kinds of really spectacular things that you never know what you're going to find around the bend. So here's more of that red velvet passage. You can see that the flowstone here on the surface is brightly colored, and it's heavily got a lot of formations in this area, a really spectacular area of the cave. Here's a rimstone pool, and this rimstone pool is, you can imagine if there was water in here, this would be the edge of the water, and it builds up calcite formation around the edge, kind of like in your toilet bowl. It's exactly the same thing. As this water evaporates, the calcite connects to the side, just like in your toilet bowl, and you have to use either something like CLR or a pumice stone to scrape that off. Because that's what we get in southeast New Mexico is we have really hard water, and hard water is indicative of a lot of calcite in the water, so, and salts and that sort of thing. So that's how these type of formations form. You can see it's a really pretty area. Here's some flowstone falls. So as these formations kind of work, you can see that it's an action of water. This looks like water flowing over like a waterfall, but it's leaving deposits behind that create these formations. And then sometimes you'll have formations like aragonite that'll form on stalactites in various places. And the exploration in Fort Stanton Cave continues and probably will continue for many, many, many more years. We're nowhere near the end of it, and we have a lot of cave to explore. So one of the things I'd like to share with you guys too is, let me go do this video before we do cave request. And it's a video that one of our cavers made while he was exploring. Let me see if I can do an escape on that. Okay, good, get out of this. He went on a 43-hour cave trip to map a new section last fall, and made a nice little 15-minute video that's pretty cool. Let me do this again, and this, and this, and where is that? Oops, let's go like so. This, and there. Video. Can you see the video?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Can't hear it very well though.
Okay. But you can hear it?
I can't hear it.
Okay, let me do this really quick. Stop this. I think that on the video share, let's go back to, are you guys there? Okay, you're there. Let me, I think if I share this video, okay, share screen. Okay, this is what I need right here. Okay, there we go. We're sharing sound now. Now you can hear it?
Between 2014 and 2018, the Snowy River Passage was inaccessible due to flooding. But in late 2018, it dried up just long enough to allow a few exploration trips before the cave closed for the bat hibernation season. During this short window, teams were able to survey 3 miles, extending the total length to 35 miles. In 2019, the caving season opened with more flooding, but by the end of the summer, the Snowy River Passage dried up again, though a trip to the far upstream end was turned back when they discovered pools and short zones of flowing water that barred travel. During October of this year, 3 marathon caving trips were approved to visit Bliss Borehole, which diverges from Snowy River prior to the intermittently flooded section. This upper-level paleo trunk passage is now being described as the second longest cave passage in the world. These 3 survey trips, which took place over a 2-week period, each lasting between 36 and 43 hours, resulted in 5.5 miles of new exploration and survey. Fort Stanton Cave has a single entrance, and trips to Snowy River begin by traveling through the large trunk passage of the main corridor and Conrad's Branch, before reaching Don Sawyer Memorial Hall. A 50-foot dig shaft at the far side of this room leads to the Mud Turtle Passage and Snowy River. travel on Snowy River, we perform a complete change to clean gear, including non-marking white-soled shoes. There are a few dirty travel zones, including Independence Hall, Two-Way Hill, and Mount Airy, that require either changing back to dirty cave gear or wearing dirty shoes or shoe covers. These steps are necessary to minimize impact to the white calcite Snowy River formation, but makes our cave packs much larger and heavier than they would be in most caves. Most of the travel on Snowy River is easy walking, but a round trip to Snowy River South involves 2 trips through the crawl from hell, for more than 4,000 feet of crawling, where packs must be rolled.
You did say what? It's 12 miles into the back?
Yeah. This trip is only going about 6 miles before they get to where they're going to do their exploration.
In 2011, the realm of the floating islands section of Snowy River was explored, and the team noted 2 large leads in the ceiling that they named Higher Hopes. It wasn't until 2014 that a team returned to these leads equipped with large plastic tarps to protect the Snowy River formation from loose debris that gets knocked down during the climb. What they found was 30-foot diameter borehole going both north and south away from the Snowy River passage. The original exploration team mapped nearly 9,000 feet to the south and left the northern passage as a lead, not knowing that flooding of the cave would prevent a return trip until 2018. When a team finally did return, they were able to survey nearly a mile through complex breakdown to a trunk passage that continued to the northeast. During the final survey trip of 2019, our team had to travel out to leads at the far end of extensive surveys from the previous 2 weekends that totaled more than 3 miles. Total travel time to these leads was more than 6 hours from the entrance, and because there was no water source in this portion of the cave, we each had to carry 6 to 7 liters of water. We took a little time to improve the flagging so that impact from travel is isolated to a single trail. Fort Stanton Cave contains numerous areas with calcite or flowstone on the floor that requires clean shoes to cross. There are also many sections of mud. And to deal with these transitions, teams are now carrying 2 sets of supportive shoes, as well as 2 sets of sturdy shoe covers. One set of shoes and covers are for traveling across dirty sections, while the other set are for clean sections. Despite carrying all of these sets of footwear, we still sometimes find ourselves caving in socks. At 3 a.m., after 18 hours of caving, we found a nice flat area in the passage we were surveying that wasn't too muddy, so we took advantage and bivouacked for 6 hours. We went straight from surveying to sleeping and back to surveying again, but this gave us the energy to go another 18 hours. As time began to run short, and the quality and quantity of remaining leads dwindled, we investigated a small lead 30 feet above the floor of the main passage that required a bit of exposed climbing to reach. This small 3-foot-high hole soon opened into what we call the super borehole, and then into an elaborately decorated area filled with velvet flowstone, which we named Scorched Earth. low-level room in a flowstone-coated dry pool basin was discovered just prior to leaving scorched earth. The room contains an amazing display of rare pool fingers that rivals the best that can be found in Lechuguilla Cave.
Hey, you guys gotta check this out. Baby said, I was like, dude, this is very special. And now I'm realizing it's even more special. This is a lever. Velvet wrapped.
The trip out of the cave took almost 8 hours, and we exited around 3 a.m. after 43 hours underground. We surveyed more than 2 miles and pushed the overall length of Fort Stanton Cave to more than 40 miles. The efforts of the Fort Stanton Cave Study Project and Bureau of Land Management have now made Fort Stanton Cave the 12th longest cave in the U.S. and 48th longest cave in the world.
Okay.
Wow.
Stop sharing. There we go. Sorry, it's kind of a long video, but I think it gives people a feel for what exploration's like and the length that it can take. And that's actually a shorter trip. So 43 hours is not 4 days, or in some places in Lechuguilla, they're even doing 7 to 10 day trips.
Wow.
That's
So involves underground camping and survival and all of those good things that us explorers like to do.
Well, for those of us who don't go underground, the National Conservation Area there that surrounds, or I should say, is on the top of the cave, the surface, there's opportunities for all kinds of recreation in that area, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have 72-mile trail system. We have 2 campgrounds. One is in the process right now of being upgraded and expanded. So that's going to have a total of 27 RV hookups now. It'll have an expanded dump station. We just put up a new group shelter. So there's a lot of exciting things going on there. And then there is a campground over by the cave called Cave Campground. That has about 5 sites in it that are a little more rustic, picnic table, shelter, and there is a vault toilet there as well. So, and then you can do dispersed camping anywhere on the 25,000 acres. As long as, and if you have a vehicle, you can stay on open roads, and we have 22 miles of open roads, so you can explore that. You can pull off up to 100 feet off of the road with your vehicle to set up camp. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there. You can mountain bike and hike on the trail system. The Rob Jaggers campground is an equestrian centric type of campground. So a lot of people in Southeast New Mexico enjoy riding horses, and we've got nothing but rave reviews about our trail system.
Yeah.
So
Do
yeah,
we used to have an annual horse endurance ride event. Is that still going on in the summer?
yeah, it does happen during the summer. This year it was canceled due to
Like
COVID-19,
like a
else
lot
in
of
our
things.
lives. Right. So we'll see what happens next year, but we've been adapting we're finding new ways to adapt to the COVID situation and try to make these events happen. Like caving, I mean, you're in a confined space with 4 other people. You would think that would be a prime place to have transmission of COVID. But this year we're using masks, and we're asking cavers to quarantine for 2 weeks before, and then be tested, and we check temperatures, and so there's all kinds of safety features that we've implemented in order to be able to have caving happen. And so these sort of small social bubbles happen, and then those people stay together, and like I said, they're wearing masks, and it's worked out well. We haven't had any transmission related to caving, and I think we ran a total of 12 or 13 trips this year. So it's just small groups. We used to have big caving explorations where 50 people would come and they'd all be at the bunkhouse and things like that, but now we just have the team of 4 come. We sterilize the bunkhouse, we, socially distance, we do all of that during caving. So we've found ways to make things happen, and I think we can probably do that with other events as well.
All right. I know BLM used to have people go into Fort Stanton Cave until the white nose syndrome was found, not exactly in New Mexico, but close enough that we were concerned with transmission to the bats. Is that still the case?
There is a potential for transmission to bats. That was your question, right?
Well, I was, that was the first part of the question. Implied was, is it still closed to just people going in and looking in the front part of the cave?
Yes. Well, that closure is due to white nose syndrome. So
Right.
My hope is that next year I should be able to hopefully run a pilot project, and this is in sort of the planning phases right now. It hasn't been completely approved, but we're very close. We've got initial approval on it. Is to run a pilot project next year to run a total of 96 entries into the cave using dedicated gear. And we should be able to get some people in and members of the public for a guided educational tour using that dedicated gear.
Okay, dedicated gear meaning it's only used at Fort Stanton Cave.
Correct.
Okay, which leads us to what I think you were going to next. Is there ways that somebody can virtually visit the cave?
Yes, there is. We actually have been working on that, and Dr. Ron Lipinski, who is out of Albuquerque, has developed using LiDAR and photogrammetry what we're about to present next. And I think, Greg, does that look like it's up and going?
Yep, let me pull it on up here.
Okay, and I can kind of talk you through the first part of it, and then we can kind of go from there. Oops, what happened to my...
Oh, dang it.
There we go.
Story of my life, wrong password.
Yeah, pretty much.
Your password is expired, or something like that.
Okay. All right, so you're in. So this looks a little chunkier than it probably is for Greg there. But we'll go around. This is the outside of Fort Stanton Cave. Go ahead and walk down this road a little bit. You'll see a gate right there to your left. I think if you touch on the gate,
Close the gate.
Oh, you got to turn around and close the gate. Everything in caving is dramatic, including the soundtrack.
The soundtrack of your life. Huh?
Yep. So as
Wait,
you
wait,
come
wait.
down, if you look to around on the walls there, Greg, I don't know if you want to mute the
Oh yeah.
music.
Trying to figure out how to mute it.
Maybe, there you go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so if you go back up to that,
Maybe not.
yeah, there you go. Okay, if you turn in there, you should be able to look at
Just a second.
you'll find some gold buttons on the walls. And if you click on those round buttons, what'll happen is it'll bring up an educational component, and you should be able to, you'll learn stuff, and you get to the gates if you pass the test. So there's some ahead of you.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, just right there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so click on that, and up comes some information about bats and
Oh,
white
wow.
nose. And so I think there's one where you can turn on the lights. If you get a little bit closer, there you go. So if you turn on the lights, which don't actually exist in the cave, but they help for this particular simulation. So you're going back up, you turn around.
And there's a bat too.
Yep. So if you follow this down into the cave, this path, this is exactly what the entrance to Fort Stanton Cave looks like. And I know you can do different views as well, but if you follow through there, yep, there's that, and that's like a point of view. You went into crawling mode, but yeah, if you follow along that, it'll tell you there's the shepherd's hut feature that is in the entrance sink. Here's another one of those gold discs. Go ahead and click on that. Talks about white nose syndrome and where it's expanded across the country. I think if you hit shift, you might be able to run.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's that.
There you go. Okay, so that green disc right there is the exam. So if you back up, you got to pass the test before you can go in the cave. We want you to be prepared.
Makes sense.
There it is. So this test will, if you pass this, you could enter the cave. So what species of bats are found in Fort Stanton Cave? Click on the best 3 answers. What did you learn, Greg?
Oh, no.
There's Townsend, there's gray myotis, Townsend, and then fringed myotis.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Bats eat flying insects such as moths, beetles, and grasshoppers. True.
That's true? Okay.
Yeah. And what is the annual value of bats to agriculture by eating insects in North America? So if our bat species disappear, then we would have to use a lot more pesticides and things like that to help save our crops. But bats do that for us. We're looking at $4 billion worth of value. All right, try to submit. Is there some below? Can't see if you got, I know that's correct.
Oh, I had one all right. Let's see. We got
Townsend's for sure. What bat species are found?
Oh,
I thought it was the Western smallfoot.
There may be some Western smallfoot in there. Most of them are Townsend bats. So
we got Townsend. That's
Townsend, Western smallfoot, and the fringed myotis.
oh, okay. I think that's what I had wrong. I had gray.
Okay.
Okay. Correct.
There you
Aha.
go. So now you can exit the exam and the gate will open for you. You have to click on it. I fixed that squeak last year.
I like that. Ooh.
Yep, so I think you have to close the
Oh.
gate too.
Yep, gotta.
So we wouldn't want somebody following in behind you, and then when you left the cave and you locked them in there, then and nobody came back for them and nobody knew they were there because they didn't file their cave plan with anybody.
Ooh.
We'll find skeletons the next spring. So yeah, you're passing by. Stop at that node right there. Click on that.
Oh.
Okay, well, because I gave you the secret code, this will actually teleport you to different places. Click on Turtle Junction area. Okay, so this is where you come out of the sort of historic area of the cave and go into here. I think there's a light switch right there too, so go ahead and click those on. Okay, and if you look ahead of you, you can see that there's Snowy River Passage. And if you walk on to there, why don't you click on that node that was right behind you?
Let's see.
Right there on the ground.
Right, yeah,
Right there. Down below you, right, you're standing next to it. There you go. So this tells you about the mud turtle formation and different things. Go ahead and close that. You're going upstream, go the other way.
Okay.
Yeah, that way. So as you can see, this is, your cave exploration. We really shouldn't be running in the cave, but for time's sake, this makes it a time saver. And so this is basically what Cave Request is. We've mapped 8 miles of passage into this, this avatar-based learning tool, as we like to call it. People can do exploration and explore the cave for themselves, Howard, like you had mentioned before, since we do have restricted access, which looks like it may be opening up in the next few years. But for right now, this is a great way of doing it. And LiDAR is starting to become an idea that people are using to just map caves, period. And we've been using it for almost 7-8 years in Fort Stanton Cave. So
how does somebody get a hold of this Cave Request? I mean, where do you find it if you want to go on this tour?
If we bounce back out, and I know Greg's going to have this the rest.
He's having too much fun.
Seriously, I am.
Yep. Let me do a screen share again with this, and I believe this, and this, and this. And here is the address for Cave Request. So you can get this, download this for free online at this address, which is the Fort Stanton Cave Study Project.org, which is my primary volunteer group. And this is where we archive stuff on their website to get it out there. And then you go to CQ6, and I believe that, and this gets updated every year and periodically. So that's a great link for scouts to go to. It downloads onto Windows-based units, also Apple-based units, and Unix, I believe, if you are a super geek.
And I was just able to Google this, and I found it on the internet pretty easy too.
Yeah, Cave Request will pop right up and get you right to that page.
Cool.
So
if we can't go in person, I guess we'll go virtually.
Yes, exactly.
If you're a real geek, you get some of those
Let me
goggles.
stop sharing.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool. A little virtual reality.
VR, we are very close to our VR version of this already.
Oh, is that right? I thought
We've
I was
been
going to start
developing this. No, that will be coming out probably this spring, if not sooner. So we were on that one.
I'm going to put a plug in for you because the NCA, Fort Stanton NCA, is a beautiful place, as you can see over my shoulder. This was a picture I took more than 20 years ago, but it still looks pretty much like this. It's a great place to take your troop, go for a camp out. We've had camporees, we've had conservation good turns. I've even got old pictures of an Eagle Scout project in Crystal Crawl. And the scouts in those pictures are now approaching 40. So it's the opportunities in the area. It's fairly close to Roswell. I know the troop in Ruidoso goes to the NCA all the time, or the fort itself. But it's a great place to go. I know a lot of people like to go over to Valley of Fires, and you drive right by this. So it's for a scouting resource place to go camping. It's a terrific spot.
Absolutely.
You can mountain bike, you can hike, you can get your 5-mile hike in, and all the stuff that scouts do.
And
Greg,
if you're looking for volunteer opportunities for scouting groups, please contact the BLM, either myself or Blake Ingram, down in the Roswell field office, and we'll be happy to connect you guys with some projects that we have around our field office and up at the NCA as well, for sure.
Okay. Is there anything else, Greg, that we can think of and stretch the time or fill in the Saturday morning that we're working on?
I don't have anything particularly. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation. And I'd also like to give a plug to the Capitan Library, which has allowed me to use their bandwidth to give this presentation, and a great library in Capitan if you guys ever get a chance to stop by. So
Been there, but it was like 10 years ago. So
very good. All right.
Thanks again, Newt. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime. Have a great day, guys.
Good night.
See ya.